Hail Cobra!
G.I. Joe!
What's up, G.I. Joe fans and movie fans alike? Welcome back to the channel. I am D-WIZZLE, and we're continuing on talking about all the G.I. Joe films, including Snake Eyes, which is going to be released in theaters really soon. I've already talked about the original animated movie from the 80s, so if you guys haven't seen that video, I will leave a link in the description below so you guys can watch it. But today we are talking about the live action movies now, starting with the first one that came out in 2009, G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. So as I said before, I am a G.I. Joe fan. I did watch some of the cartoon show when I was a kid, and I read a couple of the comics. But I wouldn't say I'm like a huge G.I. Joe fan. I don't know everything about the lore and the characters and stuff like that. But, I do enjoy G.I. Joe. So when it came to Rise of Cobra, I actually didn't see this the year it came out. It actually took me like a couple of years to watch this for a few reasons. One, when I saw the trailers for this movie, it didn't look good at all. It looked like such a departure from the original source material. Like it felt unrecognizable to me, and with all the weird technology and the uniforms and whatever. So I wasn't digging it, so I didn't want to see this in theaters. Another reason, I felt like I needed a break from bad Hasbro movie adaptations because I just came off of watching Transformers Revenge of the Fallen at the time, and I really hated that movie. And I think the live action Battleship movie came out not too long after that. If anyone remembers that movie, they actually did a Battleship film. Wow. But yeah, that wasn't that good either. So I had no desire to see Hasbro movies in the theater, like, cause it just felt like Paramount didn't understand these characters. So I'm just like, oh, okay, miss me with that. But yeah, so a couple of years later, I was like, you know what? I'm actually curious to see how bad this live action G.I. Joe movie is, And it would have been a disservice if I didn't, check it out, just to see how it is, because I am a G.I. Joe fan. So I went and bought the DVD and I sat down to watch this. My expectations were so low, and surprisingly enough, I actually enjoyed this. Yeah, I actually had a good time with G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. I know that's not a popular thing to say because when it comes to the critics and the fans of G.I. Joe, a lot of people don't like this movie. You'd say it's really corny and cheesy and stupid, and it doesn't feel anything like G.I. Joe. But for me, I don't know. I had a good time with it. I enjoyed it. And I felt like it did still keep the essence of G.I. Joe, even though they changed a whole bunch of things. It reminded me of the first Michael Bay Transformers movie before the sequels came around and dragged it to hell. But the first Michael Bay Transformers movie, they changed a lot of stuff from the source material as well. But I still felt like they kept the essence and the spirit of what Transformers is. And that's what I feel Rise of Cobra did. Yes, there's quite a few changes from the original, TV show and the comics, but I still felt like I was watching G.I. Joe for the most part. This is not a great movie by any means, but it did set out what it needed to be, which was a fun action movie, and I enjoyed it from that standpoint. One of the things that I liked about this movie was how focused it was, because even when I was watching the animated show as a kid, and especially when I was watching the original animated movie, I felt like there were so many characters to follow that we couldn't truly get invested in any of them. It felt like they had to throw every single character in that movie. But in Rise of Cobra, they actually, trimmed it down a bit. They had us focus on a handful of Joes, and we actually understood, who the main characters were. We mainly focused on 4 Joes, even though there were other Joes, that were supporting roles, but that's what they were, supporting roles. You didn't expect us to, get development for every single, Joe that's there. They actually, focused on it. Like the four Joes, we focused on Duke, we focused on Ripcord, we focused on Scarlet, and Snake Eyes. So those are the four that get the most development out of the Joes anyway. And that's what I really appreciated. I was able to, get invested in the characters better. Now, as far as the Joes, I actually enjoyed most of them. Channing Tatum as Duke, I thought he was pretty solid as Duke. Now, he wasn't my first choice to play him, and when this movie came out, I think this is when Channing Tatum was still trying to work on himself as an actor. But for the most part, I thought he was pretty solid as Duke. One of the biggest question marks when it came to casting in this film for me was Marlon Wayans as Ripcord, because I'm not a huge Marlon Wayans fan. I don't think he's that funny, and I don't really enjoy any of his movies, or like most of them. There may be a couple of them that I think that are okay, but I'm just not a Marlon Wayans fan, and that it was really odd that they casted him in the G.I. Joe movie. But I actually liked him in this film. I enjoyed him as Ripcord. Now, I don't know that much about Ripcord from the animated show and the comics, so I was able to let some stuff slide more when it came to Marlon Wayans' portrayal of him. But, I actually liked his portrayal in the movie. I actually found him endearing. I actually found him charismatic, and I liked his camaraderie that he has with Duke. I actually bought them as friends, and, two soldiers that fought together for years. So, I actually enjoyed them in the movie. I also liked Scarlet in the film. She was pretty good. Now, she goes through a bit of an arc in this movie as well. You feel like she has a bit of a chip on her shoulder. She's striving to be one of the best Joes, and she doesn't like failing on a mission. She really takes it to heart, and there was a couple of moments in this movie where she doesn't succeed. But she learns to pick herself back up and try her best. So I really liked the arc that she went through, and she helped learn this from Ripcord out of everyone. I'm surprised that Ripcord was able to bring that out of her. And there was kind of a romance brewing between Ripcord and Scarlet, and I actually kind of liked that. I actually bought that. And then, let's talk about the MVPs of this movie. Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. They were great. Literally straight out of the comics and the show. And those two I was worried about the most. Because, all the stuff that they changed from the source material in this movie, I was worried, are they going to deviate too much with Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes? But no, they were exactly how I pictured them from the comics, and they were exactly how they were from the show. So I was really happy about that. And then Snake Eyes being played by Ray Park. Yes, I love Ray Park. He's one of the best stuntmen in Hollywood, in my opinion. And he may be a bit short for the character, but I don't care. I'm short, so we need some short representation. I'm 5'7". I think he's around 5'7", 5'8", not sure. But I still thought he was great in this movie. And then I also like Storm Shadow in this movie too. We actually got backstory for them. We actually got their history in the Ninja Clan starting out when they were kids. So I thought that stuff was really, really interesting. And whenever these two fight on screen, it's magic. I love every time Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes fight in this movie. It's so great. And you actually feel, the weight of, their rivalry in this film. Now, I know there were some people that complained about how Snake Eyes looked like they don't like the lips that he has on his helmet. I actually didn't mind the lips on Snake Eyes. I actually kind of liked it. It was different, and it looked more modern. It fit with the aesthetic that they were establishing in the movie. It's like you still recognize that it's Snake Eyes. So the lips, they may have had like more of a face sculpt for his helmet. I actually kind of dig that. I liked it, but I guess I get where some people saying it looks kind of weird. Another thing that they changed that I wasn't digging as much was the uniforms for G.I. Joe. They're just like these generic black sleek uniforms, and I wish that they harkened more to the source material when it came to that, because each Joe had their own look. They had their own costumes, they had their own designs. That made them more diverse and unique. But in this movie, like, everyone's wearing black and stuff like that. It reminded me of the original X-Men films where, in the comics, each X-Men had their own costume and design, but in the movies, they all want to put them in generic black leather outfits. So I wish they didn't do that for Rise of Cobra. But, at least with these uniforms that they're having, they're more tactical. Like, they're able to move better than the leather outfits of the X-Men films. They actually look more aerodynamic. So, even though I wasn't digging everyone wearing the same thing, at least, it has a purpose. As far as the other Joes that we see, like Commander Hawk, Heavy Duty, and Breaker, they don't get as much development as the other four, but, you still like them as characters. They have their own kind of gimmick, and they have their own personalities, and they're still likable. So I still enjoy them a lot. Captain Hawk being the stern commander of GI Joe, I thought he was pretty solid. And Heavy Duty being the muscle of the group, and then Breaker, of course, being the hacker and stuff like that. So they all served a purpose in the movie, and that's all we really need. If they serve a purpose in the film, I'm okay if they don't get as much development as the main four. Now let's talk about Cobra. So the main villain of this movie is actually not Cobra Commander. It is Deathstroke, of all people. Well, it's Deathstroke before he gets, his iconic silver face and stuff like that. They actually gave origins to members of Cobra, and I really, really dig that. Christopher Eccleston playing Deathstroke, I thought he was really good in this movie. I already love Christopher Eccleston. I enjoyed him as Doctor Who, and he was Malekith in Thor: The Dark World, and yeah, that wasn't that great. But I still love Christopher Eccleston, and I'm glad they got him in a G.I. Joe movie. I didn't expect for him to be in a movie like this. And then the Baroness gets development in this film too. Like, she actually has a backstory with Duke. Like, they used to be lovers at one point. I know there'll be some hardcore Joe fans to be like, that wouldn't happen. Baroness and Duke would never fall in love. They would never date. But it's like, I don't know. I just found that really interesting. It raises the stakes, for me. So, and like I said, I don't feel like they really touch on, how the members of Cobra came to be that much. I mean, I'm sure they lightly touched on it in the comics and stuff like that. Like I said, I haven't read all of them, but the Cobra members don't get as much development as the Joes, in my opinion. So for me, I really found it interesting how we see all these iconic Cobra members came up. How did they become members of Cobra? How did they start out? And that's especially why I love Cobra Commander in this movie, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. That is one of the most left field castings I've ever seen, but I ended up loving that casting. When he's playing the Doctor in this film, like, he felt like a completely different person. I didn't see Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Like, he gave such a hammy, over-the-top performance, but I was loving it, man. Like, I didn't think Joseph Gordon-Levitt had that big of acting chops, so I really liked him as the Doctor, and just seeing how he develops himself, as the Doctor of Deathstroke's organization, and how he slowly becomes the leader of Cobra and stuff like that. I just found all that really interesting. And even he has a connection to Duke and the Baroness, because he used to be good friends with Duke, serving in the war along with him and Ripcord. And then, he got into this accident that apparently was the cause of Duke not, protecting him. So that gives some dimension to Cobra Commander as well. And I thought that was really interesting. And once again, I know the hardcore Joe fans are going to be like, that's nothing like how it was in the comics. He had a completely different origin in the comics. Or it's nothing like the animated movie because he had connections to Cobra Law and that. So this makes no sense. That just personally didn't bother me. I'm okay with different interpretations. Like, Origins was never consistent with Cobra Commander. It was one thing in the comics, and it was one thing in the animated movie, and it was probably another thing in the animated show. So it's like, is there really a definitive origin of Cobra Commander? I don't really think so. But with this origin in Rise of Cobra, I found it interesting. I like that there's connections between G.I. Joe and Cobra. I like that there's, there's tie-ins with different characters. It just makes it more layered, you know. And then as far as the action sequence in this movie, I found it really entertaining. This was directed by Stephen Sommers, who is most popular for the first two Mummy movies with Brendan Fraser. So you know he knows how to direct a cheesy action movie, and he translates that in this movie. I enjoyed all the fights in this film. The fight in the pit I really enjoyed. The chase in France, I thought that was good. Even the underwater battle, I know there's people that complain about the underwater battle sequences. I actually kind of like the underwater battle sequences. And of course the fights with Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, I thought they were great. So I found all the action stuff entertaining. It didn't feel as chaotic as, you know, the stuff I would see from the original animated stuff. I was slightly disappointed that there was no, you know, red lasers versus blue lasers. You know, that's a vintage thing from G.I. Joe. So I was like, I wish they incorporated that more into the film. But even the technology that they have in this movie, I actually kind of digged. There are some that I felt was a little too extreme, like the accelerator suits. The accelerator suits were just stupid. I don't know why they were in this movie. Like, I think they were just trying to copy Iron Man. But yeah, that didn't fit at all. But you know, as far as the other tech stuff that they have in the movie, like even like the nanite stuff that that Deathstroke has, you know, with Mars, that's straight out of the comics. The Mars, you know, stuff. I'm surprised that, you know, Steven knew that much about the lore to put that in the movie. But you know, even like the green nanites that take down the Eiffel Tower, I thought that was pretty cool. And even like the airship carriers and even the guns that Cobra has, I thought all that was pretty cool. I also like G.I. Joe's base of operations. It's the pit. It's this underground facility in the desert, and there's a whole bunch of levels underground, and each level has a different thing going on. So I really thought that was cool. And that was straight out of the comics too, the pit. And I think it, you know, it changes locations depending on which comic it is. Cause I think there's another version that's in the jungle somewhere, and another place that's somewhere else. But you know, I thought the pit was really, really cool. And I know there's some people that complain about how cheesy and over the top this movie is. Like, you know, they don't like the corny one-liners, or how they're trying to force, you know, the G.I. Joe lingo in here, like knowing is half the battle and stuff like that. I kind of dig it. You know, for me, I always found G.I. Joe to have a certain level of cheese and camp in this movie. So I'm glad that they just embraced it. But it wasn't too much where it felt overly stupid, you know. I feel like you should have a good level of cheese and have a good level of seriousness. And I feel like they balanced it pretty well for the most part. Like, even when there are moments in the movie that are cheesy, they actually do have some moments that are pretty intense and dark as well. But you know, I didn't feel like there was a complete tonal whiplash. But for me, you know, I like the cheesy moments. I like that they're spewing the G.I. Joe lines in here. I kind of dig that. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention Brendan Fraser's in this movie as well. He's just a glorified cameo. He plays Stone. I really wish they gave him more to do in the movie, or I wish they would have brought him back for other G.I. Joe sequels, because you know, it's Brendan Fraser, you know, and at that point he still looked in decent shape, so I would have been really excited to see him utilized more in G.I. Joe movie. And basing off his character Stone, he does end up getting an eye patch and a robotic arm, so man, wouldn't you guys pay to see that though? Like, is to see Brendan Fraser with a robotic arm kicking Cobra ass, man? Like, I would have loved to see that. But yeah, I digged that Brendan Fraser actually came into this movie, you know, because it's Stephen Sommers. And then also, speaking of Mummy cameos, Arnold Vosloo as Zartan, I thought he was pretty good in the movie too. Also, he doesn't get a whole lot to do in this movie. He's pretty much set up for Cobra's overarching diabolical plan that leads into retaliation. But you know, I found him pretty entertaining as well. And of course, he's, you know, whistling. That seems to be his, you know, his catchphrase in the movie practically. But I know people were annoyed how many times he would do that. But you know, I thought it was fine. Another thing I hear people complain about is they don't like the design of Cobra Commander and Deathstroke at the end. I personally kind of liked Cobra Commander's new design.
You will call me Commander.
Like the face mask that he has, like I like that it's unique, it's different, but you still felt like it was Cobra Commander. You know, I wish people were just a little bit more patient with that and just see how it's, you know, executed, you know, with movies going forward. As far as the Deathstroke stuff, yeah, the silver CGI stuff, you know, he gets injected with some serum from Cobra Commander and that's how he gets the face. It did look kind of rough. And it's strange because, like, in the very beginning of the movie, they set up, you know, his ancestry of how the silver face is. Like, it was actually like an iron mask that they would put on. And I think he actually had, like, one in his office somewhere as a display. So I wish they could have just utilized that instead of having, you know, the rough CGI face that he has. But, you know, it's whatever. I guess that goes into another issue that I had with the movie was I did feel like there was some CGI shots that were not very good. Like the CGI in the movie did feel uneven in places, but it wasn't too much to the point where it took me out. But there was a couple of points where I thought, oh, the CGI did not look that great. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed this movie. I liked it. I don't understand the visceral hate that this movie gets. Yes, they changed some stuff from the source material. Yes, the CGI could have been better. Yes, it was cheesy and over the top. This movie does have problems. It's not a perfect film, but I still had a fun time with it, you know, and I think that was all it was set out to be, was a fun action movie. And I felt like it had enough essence of G.I. Joe where, you know, it didn't feel drastically different. You know, I still felt like I was watching G.I. Joe. And I actually liked some of the, you know, the stuff that they changed from the original comics and shows. You know, I like that they actually gave development to characters. I like that there are actual tie-ins between Cobra members and Joe members. You know, the stuff that was deviated from the source material, it actually made it a little bit more interesting. So yeah, I will say that G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra is pretty good. I really wish the future G.I. Joe films built off of this, because the foundation that Rise of Cobra set, in my opinion, it could have made for even better sequels, even more polished sequels. This could have been just as big of a franchise as the Transformers films, in my opinion, if they just stood with the continuity of Rise of Cobra. But, you know, that doesn't end up happening. But that's how I feel about G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra. What did you guys think about it? Did you guys love it? Did you guys hate it? Did you guys think it was okay? Comment below, let me know. For all you hardcore G.I. Joe fans, how did you guys feel about this movie? Do you guys like it like I do? Or do you guys feel like this was such a departure from the source material that, you know, it wasn't enjoyable for you? I want to know. Comment below. But okay, so we did the animated film, we did Rise of Cobra, and now we're going to get into G.I. Joe Retaliation next time. So tune in for that. But that's all I have for you G.I. Joe fans, and I will see you guys in the next video. Talk to you guys later. Yo, Joe!